Well, welcome to the Listening Porch, Eric. I love the way you're sending me these little prompts in regards to what things we might want to give attention to or talk about. And I'm going to speak to this one because what we do is you send me these things and then we just begin to interact, and there's a lot of spontaneity. And sometimes I'll reach back into old teachings and old knowings that many times I've even forgotten. And then sometimes they just come flooding back in good form and fashion, and sometimes I sort of cripple them trying to get them out of the cage, you know. But you sent me one that says, why is this podcast, why is this called The Listening Porch? What is it about porches? And well, I'll tell you this. We have almost lost the storytellers to technology and industry, because now a storyteller basically is a marketing person, or a storyteller is a scriptwriter for a movie, or a storyteller is a such and such. But there was a time that wasn't true. You know, you've heard me say often that a storyteller is a guardian of memories. And how did that work in the old days, and which I feel like this is the premise of this program. Mm-hmm. A storyteller was an uncle that showed up back from the war. A storyteller would be the old man that at church that lived through the flood. A storyteller might be. Well, when you look at it like an Irish culture, everything is built around story and remembrance and guardians of memory and so on, even to the point that their language, the Irish language, they have a Gaelic, real Irish language that speaks to that. For example, if you're in Ireland, like January 6, what does that start? January 6, 1839, a hurricane basically blew across Ireland. You don't hear many hurricanes over there. I think they're experiencing one right now. Really a harsh storm going on. And here we are in October. But anyway, 1839, a storm blew across Ireland, and in the air, around that part of the world over there, 42 ships went down. Houses were blown. Cottages. There's so much destruction. It put such a wound in the culture that from that day forward, January 6th is called the Night of the Big Wind. And year after year after year, generation after generation after generation, tomorrow's the Night of the Big Wind. Or January's, it's like something that's remembered, marked in memory. And for generations, oh yes, I remember where I was on the Night of the Big Wind. And the stories would be told. I remember, my grandfathers would tell these stories about their lives. Where would that take place? On the porch. Why on the porch? Well, because back in the day, the house, when all the cooking's done and the eating's done and all that, the house would be so hot you wouldn't want to stay in there after dinner. So what would you do? You would go out on the porch after dinner, and the family would collect out there. And why doesn't that happen now? Well, two things have robbed humanity, I believe. Television and air conditioning. Because air conditioning will keep you in the house and off the porch. And television will keep you entertained by things that are not even entertaining. They're just things that are time-sucking distractors that rob us. And now we've even got our own escapes or distractions from the porch. We carry them around in our hands. I know this sounds like an old guy, but hey, I just had a birthday, Eric. I am an old guy. So I'll say this like an old guy. Turn off the TV, get out on the porch, find, if they still even make them, find you a funeral home fan, and collect all the kids around and begin to tell them the stories of your journey, where you came from, and let them know where they're going. Now, I know that there's a certain amount of sentimentality, romanticism, and nostalgia that's wrapped around that. It's kind of repulsive to many folks. But there's also a lot of folks in this world that they need that kind of connection. And the stories need to be told. You need on here, tell your dad's stories. Find those stories of the journey that you and your people come from. Everybody do this. Find the stories where that uncle that went to war, he came back and told a story. It don't matter if it's a lie. Tell the lie. And say, well, I don't know if it's true or not, but what it does is it welcomes wonder back into our lives, and it welcomes intrigue back into our lives. I don't want to watch one more television show where Schwarzenegger is blowing up a building or somebody is jumping off of a train trestle, 100-yard jump, landing on the back of a train and rolling, and then taking 3 bullets to the chest and fighting somebody off of them when they hit the ground. That is not a reality that I want to be a part of. And if that is storytelling, or if that is drama, if that is, we've created this world of overstimulation to meet the needs and the hunger that so many people have in life. And so if I want to talk about a music, there are incredibly intriguing people who carried stories, their actual life. Julian of Norwich. I love Hildegard of Bingen, John Knox, Martin Luther. I'm not going to agree with all their theology, but I'm not going to disagree that they lived these amazing, incredible lives and did. And all the old poets, songwriter, hymn writers. Like we were talking about with Fanny Crosby, a little 8-year-old girl wrote her first poem. To go on and write 8,000 hymns. I want to know what her life was like. Ira Sankey. I want to know how he lived his life and the stories behind it that caused him to be an old man one day. He and Fanny Crosby wrote the songs of their generation. Others, but they're predominantly the ones who wrote all the hymns that we sing today, many of them. And then she lived her whole life blind, writing out of imagination. He lived his whole life writing out of beauty of experience, writing all those songs, thousands of them. And then when they both get old, they're still best of friends, and he goes blind too. In his latter years, he was blind. Wouldn't you love to? I would love to. Don't let them know we're here, and just sit on the porch and listen to them talk. One of my grandfathers was literally blind for about the last 15, 20 years of his life. And I would sit on the porch and just listen to him talk. Sometimes go in and get a drink of water and come back, he's still talking. But, I wasn't being dishonoring, I was thirsty. Because I've heard most of these stories 35 times. And you know what you'll find it with your kids is they'll be saying things like, "Oh, Daddy, tell that story about so-and-so. Daddy, tell the story about so-and-so." They've heard it 100 times. You think I'm not going to tell the story again just because you've only heard it 100 times? Yeah. No. And you've got those, how old are yours?
9, 7, and 4.
Man. Yeah. Perfect time for all that wonder and porch visits. But on this porch, we talk about music, and we talk about worship and creativity and be guardians of the memories that set in motion give us, I think, a more access to a beautiful tomorrow if we honor and carry those things. So,
yeah, we've been loving. That's one of our favorite things since we moved here was just the porch time. And when we visited, we got an Airbnb, and just sitting on the front porch just did something to reset and just change our pace a little bit. Yeah. Now it's like one of our favorite things to do every morning. I don't know if you hear us out here. Yeah. What is it about? Why is it that if I sit in a normal chair on a porch, it's not the same as I have to have a rocking chair or a swinging bench or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
don't know why that is.
When you think about rocking a baby, you're putting security and peace, and there's no pain, there's no aggression, there's no attack in that. It's peace, and it's rhythm, and of course and then at some point, it'll become that ecstatic dimension of music that is within them. Even on a cellular level, they're responding to that motion, and then. And I don't want to get into all the neurosciences of all that because I'm not a neuroscientist, and I'm certainly not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Matter of fact, if we'd had psychiatry and psychology when I was a kid, I'd be so warped today I couldn't live. But anyway, there's something about that rhythm, and motion, and you're putting life in motion, and something peaceful about the rhythm of the ocean waves that come in. Something peaceful about when God decides to breathe on that tree, and he moves that willow tree just enough for you to feel like you're part of the movement,
Just enough.
Yeah, just enough. And for me, one of the things that excite or that sensation is rain. Something happens in me when a couple hours ago, all of a sudden it started raining, that beautiful little mist. I've often said, that's one of the reasons I like Ireland so much, is because in Ireland, it has the kind of rain that untangles your life. Sitting on a porch will untangle your life. Remember how frantic and impossible the task when we're trying to untangle a bunch of yarn if we do it fast. And the faster you go, the more the tangle, or a microphone cable, or an electric cord. You start trying to get it all untangled, gets, and the more frantic you try to do it, the more the tangle comes. I think that's part of what a porch and a rocking chair and a swing. Denise is, we've moved a lot of times, but we've never left our swing anywhere. It's on our back porch now. And I love it when I look out and see you guys across the street on the porch over there. I know, man, there's something good happening in their life right now.
Yeah.
And what used to happen is when dinner was over, the house is too hot to stay in there. Everybody goes out, they sit on the porch, and here goes the stories. And that's where the kids say, "Daddy, tell the story."
Yeah.
Except some of the kids that are lightning bug age. I don't know if you have lightning bugs from the world in California where you come from, but these.
No, we had none. Yeah,
but the ones that are lightning bug age are out running and turning and tumbling in the grass and catching lightning bugs, and they get that grass itch on them, and then they'll come. Then they sit down. Or another thing that used to happen on the front porch is while you're sitting on your front porch after dinner, enjoying your moment, then a neighbor, a couple who have just left their dinner table, they're just going for a walk. And there you are sitting on the porch. Community happens on the porch. Isn't it funny how even the architecture changed about a generation ago when they started taking the front porches off of houses?
Yeah.
Same time air conditioning came in.
Yeah.
So there's technology sometimes is a thief. And of course now our world, Denise and our world is lived on our back porch. But anyway, that to me is what the listening porch is about. Is you come and you listen and you hear, and you say it again, and there'll be a different nuance that comes out of the stories. And you guys right now, you're writing amazing stories right now with the girls.
Yeah.